And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin, who still refuses to get a cortisone shot and is going from adorably suffering to what are we even doing here? What are we doing? And then there's Aaron McIntyre.
Out of the shadows.
You are. See, Aaron accepts technological innovation. Now we can actually see Aaron's face. Todd is on week 3 of a bad back and refuses to take a medicine that we've been giving out for 100 years. So there's that.
There's also redemptive suffering.
I think we're past that now. It's kind of becoming like an idol. Like you're taking too much pride in it now. What do you think, Aaron? Your thoughts?
That's up for God.
What do you think, Aaron? Your thoughts?
That's a serious allegation just lobbed by Steve.
You know what, man? It's the Redskins jersey I'm wearing today. I'm feeling froggy. Wearing the old school Redskins jersey. I know you like this one. This is one of your favorite ones that I bust out every year. The John Riggins. The rare, great white running back. All right, coming up on today's show, our turn to play buy, sell, or hold with your submissions coming up at the bottom of the hour. And then we're going to be joined at the end of the program. Speaking of pain and suffering, the prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, will be here. Make Todd feel better, at least for about 15 minutes. All right, that he's not the most pained person on the set. All right. We are brought to you by our friends over at Chef IQ. I love it when you guys send me notes about our partners. Like this note from John. It says, I love mine. I never smoke or grill or bake without it. It is such a useful tool. So what is Chef IQ? It takes the stress out of knowing if your meat will come out good. Just enter whatever you're cooking into the Chef IQ Sense app, steaks, chicken, fish, whatever. Choose precisely how you like it cooked. Well done, medium rare, rare. And Chef IQ and their IQ Sense continuously monitors, predicts precisely when the food's going to be done. No opening a hot oven, sweating over a barbecue, frying pan, or air fryer. All right, you don't have to do that stuff anymore. Sends the alert to your smartphone when things are cooked to order just the way you and your guests like it. So no more guessing. It's the world's smartest, simplest to use wireless cooking sensor. And the best news is they just announced a flash sale. You need to jump on this right now. Summer grilling season is at its peak as we speak. All right, so become the Chef IQ Grill Master. During their flash sale, you're going to save 15% off by visiting chefiq.com and using the promo code Steve. Chefiq.com, using the promo code Steve at chefiq.com, promo code Steve. And with that, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by more smoking guns. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard dropped more evidence that the Obama administration actively worked to create out of nothing the Russia collusion hoax. Gabbard has declassified documents that expose how the Obama administration manufactured the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that they knew was false, promoting the lie that Vladimir Putin and the Russian government helped President Trump win the 2016 election. Not only did the Obama administration and the intel community have no proof Russia supported Trump and refused to publish the evidence they actually had to the contrary, Gabbard also declassified documents proving Russian foreign intelligence actually had dirt on Hillary Clinton, including information that the DNC was alarmed by the state of her health and she was on a heavy dose of daily tranquilizers. We had suspected much of this material, but Gabbard is now showing proof. Barack Obama released a statement yesterday calling the allegations his administration acted with malice, quote, bizarre. President Trump announced last night the United States has struck a deal with Japan, including over $500 billion of investment into the United States and rice imports from the United States. Learning Japanese today. Today's phrase is, give me some of that Louisiana rice.
Louisiana mai o kudasai.
The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee announced Tuesday that men who identify as women are no longer eligible to compete in female categories for Team USA. So-called trans-identified male athlete students who feel pretty will no longer be allowed to compete in women's categories for Team USA at the Olympic and Paralympic Games under a new directive from the USOPC that enforces President Trump's executive order to preserve women's sports. It's been reported that of the tens of millions in fire aid money distributed so far since the January benefit concerts for Los Angeles wildfire victims, it's all gone to nonprofits, not directly to residents impacted. Investigative journalist Sue Pasco, the editor at Circling the News, who also lost her home in the Palisades fire, told local media she discovered that the initial $50 million given to the benefit concert was actually distributed to around 120 nonprofits instead of residents who lost their homes. The United Nations Court of Justice, which is a place where a bunch of international judiciocrats go to cosplay as important people, ruled this morning that global warming is an existential threat and it's a human right to have access to a clean environment. Actor Jeff Daniels of Dumb and Dumber fame is convinced Kamala Harris would have been the next.
She would have done what Lincoln did. Liz Cheney would have been Secretary of State.
Team of Rivals.
Yeah, Team of Rivals. Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote the book about it. That's what Lincoln did. Surrounded himself with the people who would disagree with him. Look, I'm just an actor. What do I know?
The king of metal, Ozzy Osbourne, passed away yesterday at the age of 76, just days after his final concert in his hometown of Birmingham, United Kingdom. Osbourne leaves behind his wife of 43 years, Sharon, and his 6 children, 3 of whom were with Sharon. And finally, this from the Babylon Bee. Obama awarded Nobel Prize for exemplary work planning Russian collusion hoax. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Constitution Wealth. Have you considered how your investments might unknowingly being used as we speak right now, undermining your very values? Number 2, have you thought about how your hard-earned investment dollars are also maybe being used, going against the agenda that you just voted for in the last election? Have you answered yes to one or both of those questions? You want to become a faithful steward of the resources God gave you. Constitution Wealth will help you do that. What sets them apart from other investment advisors, they can specifically help you screen your investments for your values and making sure that they align with what you believe in. So get started today. Take control of your portfolio, and you can weaponize it instead of against yourself, against the spirit of the age with our friends at Constitution Wealth. Get a free consultation to see how that might work to get started today at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. And remember, Constitution Wealth is a registered investment advisor, and you should review their disclosures at constitutionwealth.com to understand their services and fees. And also remember that all investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. I am a client of the firm. This is a paid endorsement, but my opinions are my own. Let's get to the montage. Let's start with a story, Todd, that will be near and dear to your family's heart, and that's the decision by the U.S. Olympic Committee now to just go with biological reality and sanity moving forward. And how big of a win is this overall in this particular culture war battlefront?
You know what? I don't think it's as big a win as some of the ones came before it. Now it's kind of a snowball, just gathering another layer. But I connect this to the same thing that there's a lot of people skeptical about what's going on with how Aaron started the montage with Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the arrests? Now, in this case, it might not be flat out arrests. Has anybody been fired for not knowing like 2 seconds ago the difference between a man and a woman?
Mm-hmm.
See, that are the wins that we need to start tallying up, because the momentum is clearly on getting rid of this. But it happened. Who did this? It happened. It was high schoolers and Riley Gaines way before it was the professionals or the Olympians taking care of this business. I mean, we still, to my point recently about Caitlin Clark and why I'm done with her, they're not doing anything about this. How many pro athletes have stepped up and risked anything on this? So that's what needs to happen next. Consequences.
Oh, I can tell you a potential thing you could get arrested for: gross negligence.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
I'm in.
Yeah. So you're saying that this ruling is essentially all the heavy lifting was basically done.
Exactly.
And they had no alternative now but to sign on to this. So they're at best they're bandwagon jumpers. At worst, they are moral cowards that were just left with no alternative but to acquiesce to reality.
That's absolutely right. I mean, just like literally 2 seconds ago, this isn't stunning and brave. They watched and they let 2 men literally beat the crap in a boxing ring out of women last summer.
Mm-hmm.
They're not brave.
See, this ties in. I didn't intend to. I wanted to make sure we addressed this before we got to. I knew we'd spend the rest of our time on, which are these revelations coming out now from the Department of National Intelligence. But it does tie in because of where you chose to take the conversation, which is, where is anybody held accountable for literally anything? All right, let's assume that Thomas Matthew Crooks is the one $1.05 math club geek in the world who seemingly could figure out a way to parkour clumsily, I might add. You just see him tripping all over himself on that roof, okay?
In his defense, it was a sloped roof.
It was a sloped roof.
Yes.
Yes, of course. All right. So he found some way, all right, to parkour and go full, YouTube Spider-Man impressionist in full view of the Butler, Pennsylvania Police Department and the Secret Service. On what just so happened to be, by the way, I saw Charlie Kirk bring up this point recently. We should have brought this up earlier. I can't believe we didn't think about this. This actually happened on the final week before the GOP convention.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means? It means, I didn't even think about this.
The timing.
Yep. Because now he's about to officially become a Republican nominee for president. And so even for a former president, there's a certain kind of a dialed down Secret Service presence. So he already had more Secret Service than a typical presumptive nominee would have as a former president, right? But now that he is the official nominee of a major political party, he receives the full Secret Service detail. And this was the last weekend before the convention where somebody could have taken that shot at him before reinforcements arrived. That is one hella coincidence, man. One hella coincidence. But let's just assume that it is. And let's just assume Thomas Matthew Crooks, Math Club $1.05, Napoleon Dynamite's uglier little brother looking fella, just managed to parkour and YouTube Spider-Man impressionist his way just on happenstance the weekend before the GOP convention gave Trump the full throat Secret Service intel and protection, and just happened to do this in full view of the entire local police department and law enforcement officials and our own Secret Service, and just got lucky, man. Just got lucky. And I feel like my IQ just dropped to Kamala Harris level numbers by even just putting those random events together as if it's possible that could be a coincidence. You know, just saying that out loud, how stupid does that even sound just to say it out loud?
Well, that sums up a lot of things these days, Steve.
I mean, I sound dumber than Jeff Daniels right now, just saying this out loud, okay? Kamala Harris could have been the next Lincoln, okay?
The
smartest thing Jeff Daniels has ever said.
Favorite moment from Dumb and Dumber.
Do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Smartest thing. All right, anyway. Let's just assume, though, all random coincidences. Okay. Nobody's fired. Nobody faces any kind of legal consequences. Nothing. And yesterday, a U.S. Senator had to tell us on the show that he is trying to subpoena the FBI director of Trump's administration to get more information on this very story as we speak. The lack of desire. I saw Trump get asked yesterday about the shooter again. Well, they explained this to me, okay, cool, great. And they should explain it to you first, sir, because you were the one that got shot. But understand, you're representing at least 70 million people that voted for you in that election 3 months later. And now you have the interest of over 300 million people because you're the president of these United States. It's not that they explained it to you, sir. You're a public servant. They should have. Now, you get the first explanation because you were the one that was shot, but the rest of us are actually the ones here. The Secret Service works for us. The FBI works for us, not for you, for us. We're actually the ones, sir, owed the explanation, ultimately. Not just you. We are. And I'm just going to tell you right now, without consequences, anybody who's been a parent for 10 minutes. I'll never forget one of Anna and I's daddy-daughter dates. We were at the mall, and she saw some teenagers just acting like complete and total jagoffs. And she said, "Daddy, why do they act like this?" And I said, "I'm not talking like teenage, angst. Give the kids room to breathe. Let them grow up. I mean, they were just being complete and total, canoes. Okay." And she's like, Daddy, why'd they act like this? I said, well, probably should go and find out where their dads are or aren't and how involved they are or they aren't. And she goes, when I get to be a teenager, am I going to act like that? I said, no. And she said, why? I said, because I'm your dad. That's why. That ain't happening. You're good at, when you act out, you're going to respect me enough to do it behind my back so I'll never know, because that's the way this is supposed to work. That's America, baby. Right? Not in full view of the mall on a Saturday afternoon where anybody could call your parents and say, hey, come get your boy. All right? So there's no accountability. And things just continue to escalate. That's why I have to believe somebody's getting cuffed and frog marched and perp walked on this on the DNI stuff that Tulsi Gabbard's coming out with. Because because number one, look at the timing of this. I've seen Megyn Kelly talking about it. I think we even brought it up. Lots of other people way smarter than us have noted. The timing of this cannot be a coincidence. All right. And, our show was talking, a week and a half ago. If you're not going to give us the goods on Epstein for whatever your reasons are, there must be a substitutionary atonement made here. I mean, they're another high value target will have to be presented to, otherwise this energy will have nowhere else to go except continue to reverb back on you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's very clear, given the timing of this, that this is the people in charge over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue either thought about that before we even came up with it or agree with us, because I think that's what you're watching. I don't think there's any coincidence that this is, I wouldn't say a diversion, because they're still claiming to act on the Epstein stuff, but I think that this is trying to direct that energy so that it wasn't, they could not do anything as a White House. I mean, it was overcoming all of their messaging. Democrats are now trying to jump on the train. And of course, they're looking like fools when they can't even pass a cursory interview with Joe Scarborough asking, well, why didn't you guys get into this when Biden was president? We have chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. Okay. So, but the narrative of the base being greatly frustrated with the lack of action on Epstein. It was the first time the White House had lost the plot in the 6 months in office. They haven't won every battle, but they've been on offense. They've been initiating every battle. They have been framing the battlefield. All right. And that's ultimately how you win a war. You're going to lose battles along the way, but if you're the one framing the battlefield, your side's winning the war. And they were framing the battlefield until the Epstein letdown. And they were having a hard time getting ahead of that because it was coming from the right. It was coming from their own base. So I think it's pretty clear that this is the place now where the energy will be directed. But I cannot, and I think we all agree, this is a very high value target that we'd like to get some answers and some accountability on. I think all three of us agree with that, right? Okay.
Yes, indeed.
All right. That being said, though, and I refuse to believe that they're this dumb. I just don't believe that. But just in case I'm wrong, let me say this now on the record. I really, truly don't believe this is required to say. I mean, Tulsi's already referred this to the Department of Justice and everything else. Okay. So I don't think I have to say this, but just in case I'm wrong, let me say this now, because of what will likely have to be said later if I am. You absolutely cannot just throw something like this out there for MAGA grifter turd 45 to engagement farm off of for 3 days. And just to, give Jesse Waters something to, read out of a teleprompter tonight.
Oh, you definitely have to say this.
Okay, you think I do?
Oh, yes.
They have to know over there that if we're throwing this chum in the water, okay, it's because do-do, like the Jaws music is starting, all right? The shark is coming, all right? That this is not just, hey, guys, chum in the water, look at it, and click here for more, okay? They have to know you cannot yank our chains on Epstein and then offer the grand marshal of America's Marxist parade as an alternative high-value target. And then, 3 months from now, Lindsey Graham is still on Sean Hannity, getting to the bottom of it. They have to know that, right? You think it's possible that they don't?
I don't think the betting markets on that are robust, Steve.
Okay, because I vehemently disagree with you, and I may need to for my own mental health at this point. They have to know this. All right, no, come on, they have to. And you cannot just have Tulsi flying. I cannot possibly believe that Tulsi's just flying off half-cocked, sending criminal referrals to Pam Bondi without anybody following up or aware of it at the White House. I cannot possibly believe the first time Donald Trump found out that Tulsi Gabbard had sent a criminal referral to Pam Bondi was when he read it on X like the rest of us. I just refuse to believe that. Or just even 5 or 10 minutes before when he got a heads up. This has to be planned from the president's message. And I want it to be, and it needs to be, because this is a very high value target who's still alive.
In the they's defense, are the people still the problem, Steve?
If they thought they had problems with the people over Epstein before, throw this out there and then be like, how'd you like the talking points? Anyway, back to the next what now? Whatever you thought the energy level on the Epstein thing was right before we broke to move the studio space, okay? And so we were not live for, 4 days, okay? Whatever, and I think we all thought the energy level was bad. I think they thought the same thing, which is why they dropped this, bombshell on all of us on that Friday afternoon and picked right up on Monday morning right away. And there has been some form of oppo info dump on this every day so far this week. Okay. I just have to believe that they have and the president out there tweeting treason, arrest people. This cannot just be, we got the 7 people we're paying $10,000 a month to post for us. And we got to get those engagements up. Those are Ricky numbers. They have to know this. They just have to. I have to believe they believe this. I think there's strong evidence for it, just how much more polished and professional the rollout of this term of Trump's was compared to the first. If this was 2017, 2018, I would know for sure I need to say this. Okay, you can't do this. All right. I mean, you just cannot pee in your base's face twice in a row and tell him it's raining. You can't do that. But we're not in that era. This has been a way more polished, professional effective operation than Trump originally had in his first term. So I have to believe that you're going to see real action here. Because it's one thing to tease people, your own people. Let's make sure we understand the people you're teasing here, your own people. It is one thing to tease them about somebody that is kind of a mysterious figure. Who was he? Who was he not? Where did he get his money? We don't really know. Was it uniparty? Was it one side or the other? Was it royalty? Was it politicians? Right? There is lots of room for interpretation where Jeffrey Epstein is concerned. Barack Obama is the most, if Donald Trump is not the most pivotal political figure of the 21st century in this country, Barack Obama is. And he's still very much alive. So you're going to bait the hook with him and throw that lure out there and then just throw it into the water. And if the fish don't bite in 5 minutes, just pull it back out and say, all right, what a day. That was a great day of fishing. Moving on. If you thought you were getting swallowed up by a segment of your base on the Epstein front, you cannot possibly do that. That's why I can't believe I have to say it. But just in case Erzin is right, I'm going to say that. You can't do that. You do not throw somebody like Obama out there as just a riff. There's going to have to be something here. And something of substance. Thoughts?
It may not be Obama himself, but a name that's come up a lot so far in these 2 declassification dumps is Brennan. Would that be a substitutionary atonement? I kind of think it would be.
As a proxy for Obama? If it's as a standalone, I would say no. But if it's a proxy for Obama, then I would agree. Yes.
I'd say to the people being the problem, I totally agree with you about the base. I just wonder how much time some of them in that White House, and I think by some of them, Donald Trump is one of them, thinking about the other people and how they'll react to that. And we talked yesterday about how, hollowed out the Democrat party seems. Like, how could it? You never know in this fickle population of non-citizens what is going to. And again, he's the guy who experienced having to be out in the wilderness and being charged with untold amount of crimes because that fickle population largely fell for these things the first time. I mean, there's the thing. Donald Trump has scars about this that probably we need to put that into our calculation as well. He might be the most gun shy of anybody in that administration. Everybody, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, she's a Democrat. You think she wants to take down Hillary after what Hillary did to her last time? Oh yeah. They're probably all just waiting for the big dog to just say, go. But you can see why he's understandably reticent to do that, even if we don't agree with it.
You really think so? I would think it'd be the opposite.
He's weird that way.
I think he'd be the one that people would have to say, no, sir, we literally have to go through an investigation and an indictment. We cannot just grab Barack Obama and put a bag over his head and do a Mar-a-Lago raid.
But
okay,
you're the guy who rightly said the thing you were most worried about the first time around, that too authoritarian, and you were trying to get him to be that way. Yeah. I think that's still he just. But I said
that in his first term before, and analyzing this first term before they shot him in the face right before he took a convention.
But even
speech.
still, you'd think now it would just be like, corpses everywhere. But he's the one who wants, let's all just be groovy. Let's all get along. Let's all be rich and awesome and fabulous together. That's who he's always been.
I agree. But now I mean,
you're right.
Now Tulsi Gabbard came to drop bombs.
Yes.
All right. When a month ago she almost got taken out for talking about bombs, over Japan in World War II. All right, I can tell you, I know that for a fact. That really pissed Trump off. He was really upset. And you saw only a shadow of that in his public comments about Tulsi, and because that was what like a week or two before the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facility, when she came out with this talking point out of nowhere, okay, about Hiroshima and Nagasaki 80 years later, right? So now Tulsi Gabbard here is just dropping bombs, okay? And and you can't have a president tweeting treason and then a week or so later saying, I don't know why everybody was all concerned about this. It's a complete and total James Comey hoax. See, it's just, you can't play that card twice. And that's why I think they have to know that. Which is why I'm just going to, we're going to bring it up now and say it now, just in case we're wrong. But if you don't have accountability for this stuff, it escalates. What will it escalate to next? And think about how it might escalate next in the realm of AI and deep fakes. And how would we ever confirm or deny that something is true or not? This is why you have to have, in any competitive system, when you have a duopoly, you have two options. You have tyranny or mutually assured destruction. Those are your options. Because there has to be rules of engagement within the competition to avoid it becoming a zero-sum game. If our politics has not become a zero-sum game, we're in the final stage of what it looks like before that happens. And, you and I are in our 50s now. I've got a broken toe, which I can actually walk on today, and you have a broken back. When it goes zero-sum game, you and I are not going to be the ones that are going to face the ramifications of this. It's going to be our children and grandchildren who will.
Right.
Okay? So we have to take advantage of these opportunities to instill mutually assured destruction. You are not permitted to do these things to us, because here is what we will do to you in return if you do. Understood? We all agree? All right, now we can go back to having arguments, even vehement ones, even nasty ones. But there's rules, there's boundaries, there's borders here that we cannot violate because of what the meta consequences of doing so will be comprehensively for either side. That must be reestablished. And right now, it's nowhere to be found. And that's one of the main goals, I think, of this presidency is to reestablish that. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by Blaze TV. And hey, we're going to get through as much of your buy, sell, or hold right now as we possibly can. The rest we'll get to in the overtime to make sure you don't miss any of that, including all of the other exclusive content we produce for you each and every day here at The Blaze. Make sure you get your subscription today, just 26 cents a day. That's it. $8 a month, 26 cents a day to subscribe to Blaze TV. If you do so via blazetv.com/Deace and use the promo code Deace. That's blazetv.com/Deace. Using the promo code Deace, get all of our exclusive exposés, reports, investigations, programming. You don't want to miss it. All of the Deace Show overtimes as well. blazetv.com/Deace. Using the promo code Deace, you'll get $20 off that subscription. So it's just 26 cents a day, $8 a month for you. Code Deace at blazetv.com/Deace. And that brings us to buy, sell, or hold. Aaron has the submissions. Todd and I have yet to see them. We're going to see them in real time with the rest of you. And then we'll react. We will either buy or we will sell. We are permitted to hold. And if you should hold this week, oh boy. If you should hold this week, Mr. Erzin, here's what happens. All right.
This is what happens.
Indeed.
This is what happens.
Just as
it's a bad day to have eyeballs is what happens.
Just as JFK once said Marilyn Monroe was good for his back. If you hold this week, you're going to have to make sure that Lindsey Graham is good for yours, brother. That's what happens if you hold this week. It looks a little bit like this. Indeed.
I knew AI was going to take us to a very ugly place, and here we are.
Indeed, here we are.
Thank you, Uncontexted, on behalf of everyone who has their retinas burned out at this moment. Appreciate that.
Did you see the one where it was reversed and you were Lindsey Graham and Connor Stallings was you?
I had not seen that one, no. But I love that.
Perfection.
I mean, I would print that on a T-shirt. You bet.
Perfection.
You bet. I'd wear that on the show, in fact. Yes. All right.
We'll continue on with Chris Goebel, who says no one will be or have been arrested by the 2026 midterms. Bonus, if that's the case and nobody's arrested, Republicans will lose the House.
See, I'm buying only based on Chris understands what I was talking about. Steve is, of course, right in terms of all common sense, decency, justice, but Chris knows. He knows.
I'm going to sell because I just can't believe that this would be true. I cannot believe you throw all of this out there and for the reasons and timing you're doing it. It is because of your lack of action on the Epstein front and the negative energy that was producing surrounding your administration from your own base.
You were doing all the math, man.
And then you throw this out there as a place for that energy to now go, so it's not going at you. And then you do nothing with it. After you have referred one of your agency heads, referred it to another of your agency heads for prosecution. I just can't believe that. I just can't. All right. And so I'm going to sell.
Isn't the biggest problem, this might just be we're talking about treason.
Yes.
We're talking about a coup.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that they got into this business to be somebody, not to do something. Just like you've said all along, Steve. I mean, this is where the man has to meet the moment. And this moment is huge. This goes down as a top 10 all-time in American political history, really. I mean, Barack Obama is one of the most consequential American presidents, whether you like it or not.
Correct.
The American century. He's the first and only black president. He basically had 3 terms because he was the puppet master behind Biden all along. I mean, it's gigantic. And people pucker, as you well know.
I agree with all of that.
And I agree with everything you're saying.
But you just can't. You just can't take the action steps they've taken. You just can't. All right. There's just a certain amount of momentum in any relationship where you pass certain thresholds, and you're just simply not permitted to pull back at that point. Okay, and to do so creates much graver consequences than if you had just followed through with it. We are at that juncture with this. I just have to believe some form of action will follow. So I'm going to sell. But if it does not, Chris will be proven correct, unfortunately. Yeah. See, I also think that that comes into the calculus of the math as well, because Trump knows. I mean, Trump knows he's basically a lame duck. Why have they operated at such of a breakneck pace? Why'd they have this, amphibious level assault on multiple issues of executive orders to pick every fight you could possibly imagine, rather than your typical issue of the week rollout that we always see from presidents, particularly Republican ones? Why have they been much more on point? Why have they been much more aggressive, taken more initiative? The messaging's been on lockdown. How many firings and hirings in the White House did we see by this point in 2017? Of like high profile positions. You're not seeing any of that right now. And I gotta believe it's because Trump understands timing is of the essence. He cannot run again. So he's up against father time here. And the first Wednesday of November 26, he's a lame duck if they lose 40 House seats. Because the only thing that's going on domestically for the next year and a half are various impeachment proceedings against him. He has to know this. He has to know this because he lived this once before. So I just can't possibly believe that this is just so Griff Turd 14 can help with the engagements and take a bunch of MAGA followers off the scent of their energy, of the frustration and anger they had for the last couple of weeks. I have to believe that this is real, because the consequences of it not being real are politically catastrophic. And I just can't believe they're just that fundamentally obtuse over there, because it would just be out of character for how they've operated for the first 6 months.
Next up, we go to Frost Caldwell, who says Jerome Powell resigns before his term is up.
I agree. I'll buy. Here's the thing. Here's what would be, to me, a much more interesting buy, sell, or hold. And if after I say this, Aaron, if this is in your stack, tell me, and I'll just stop answering, okay? So I don't step on somebody's line, okay? So make sure you tell me, all right? Buy, sell, or hold, Trump actually doesn't want Powell to resign, because it gives him a scapegoat for the midterm elections to riff off of if the economy at a micro granular level continues to be slow to respond to the average American. It gives him a built-in excuse. I think that's a way more interesting buy, sell, or hold. But I don't think Powell will last. I agree.
I think Powell is probably getting a lot of pressure to last. He's probably one of the most successful thumbs in the dike there. And I would sell on yours. I don't think that political messaging would go very far. I don't think you're wrong about it. I just don't know how far it would go.
Next, we go to G. Harmon. Todd actually hurt his back in an epic lightsaber fight.
Bye.
Oh, God.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even if that happened, I'd admit it, because it's much, at least, active.
In fact, let's go one further. He was actually not even in the fight. He was practicing alone at home and threw his back out for his next lightsaber fight. That is what happened.
This is Todd's Epstein saga, okay? It's when your explanation is that you threw your back out for going on weeks because you got out of a chair, you're leaving yourself open to conspiracy theories like this.
100% agree. Excellent point, Aaron. I agree. Listen, I once threw my back out putting pants on. That happened. Okay. That did happen once. So, but it's more pathetic than this submission. He actually wasn't in the lightsaber fight. He was practicing for his next lightsaber fight, just totally at home, all by himself. And look what happened. Yes. Yeah.
Sell.
Next.
Bye.
Biden's Missing Brain has 5 best Aussie songs in tribute to his passing. Number 5, No More Tears. 4, Mama, I'm Coming Home. 3, Crazy Train. 2, Mr. Crowley. one Iron Man. Crazy Train's got to be higher. A new song that I like from him, not that anybody asked me, is Ordinary Man. He did that, I think, with Elton John back in 2020.
So I'm not never have been, a huge Ozzy guy. Not necessarily my genre of music. I did love the reality show. And when Amy and I used to do for fun, when they had that on MTV like 20 years ago, is we used to put it on, unmute the show and put it on closed captioning. Because watching the closed captioning, trying to keep up with his mumbling and indecipherable, and it would just say indecipherable over and over again. It was great. It was just a true joy to watch that. Okay. But I mean, I'm aware of all those songs. A lot of them are from the era I grew up in. I guess I'll vote for them, you know. I agree that Crazy Train should be higher, if only because of the amount of time it took me on the first Guitar Hero back in the day to conquer that. That was the last level. Before you got to the final level, the last level of the first Guitar Hero epic game was Crazy Train. And that little, that beginning riff there from Randy Rhoads was his guitarist, if I remember right. Is that right? I think that's right. It took quite a few late nights for me to conquer that. And then do you remember what the final level to Guitar Hero was? Did you know?
I never played Guitar
Okay,
Hero.
that's right. That's right. You just sit over there with a bad back. Aaron, did you play the first Guitar Hero? Did you know what the final level was, the final boss?
No.
The final boss is the devil. And you go up against the devil with the devil went down to Georgia instead of playing the fiddle, all right, you're playing the guitar. That was actually the final level. That was easier. Than Crazy Train for me.
My favorite thing about his passing is how ridiculous our standards in pop culture, because literally Fox News is on and it's like, Prince of Darkness dies. That was actually how they were advertising him.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? An angel over your shoulder, just like, dear God, what is going on here?
Yes. Yeah.
From Ozzy Osbourne to worship music, Zachary Hardenden says worship music is theologically shallow and overwhelmingly feminine.
I'm going to sell. I think it's too general. I think there is worship music that is too theologically shallow and overly feminine. I agree with that. But I just think that's too broad a brush. I think you'd have to be more specific. So I think that's going too far the other way. I'm going to sell. I do agree that, as Aaron likes to call it, there's the Jesus is my boyfriend, subset of so-called worship music. But I've encountered quite a bit of it that I actually thought was very rich and very inspirational. So I think that's too much of a generalization.
It is too much of a generalization, but if we're just going, as long as you get 50% plus one, I think there's enough there that I'll buy.
Next, we go to Mary Carruthers. Hunter Biden is making overtures as if intending to run for president in order to solicit a payoff to stay out of the race. He has no true intention of running to actually be elected. Now, I think I know what you're going to say, but buy, sell, or hold, kind of the singular, no, just kind of the nugget that she's got going there, Mary. Buy, sell, or hold. Hunter Biden is spilling the tea right now in order to solicit a payoff. Buy, sell, or hold.
I'm going to sell.
I'll sell
I just think Hunter Biden is really angry, entitled, spoiled, and pissed off. I think for those of us that have never operated, and in this line of work, I would say I've been adjacent to the world. At times, I would say. At times, I've been adjacent to the world that Hunter Biden calls his natural habitat. I've been adjacent to it. I haven't been in the middle of it, haven't been mired in it, haven't made it into that, last rung of the political, pyramid. But especially with, being around so many presidential elections in the First in the Nation caucus state, I've been adjacent to it. You think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. Where I'm not in that gated community, but I'm close enough to it. I can kind of see what's going on there. Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I think though, for those of us that have never been where people like the Bidens have been, you cannot. And so I think because of this, we don't understand the hollowness that exists when that is taken away from you. And so we think, well, maybe there's an ulterior motive here, or maybe there's a tertiary play happening, or some level of dimensional chess, when really these people have put politics, themselves, their friends, their factions, their worldly significance in every place in their heart that God is supposed to be. And when this is taken away, it's hollowed out. And you kind of have a couple of options in that scenario. You can act out because it's been taken away, and act out particularly against whom you think is responsible for taking it from you. You can seek out something else to fill that space, and maybe that will be alternative pursuits of this world, or maybe it will be a kingdom that is not of this world. But that's really your two options. You will either seek out something to fill the space, or act out because of the hurt that exists because of the emptiness of that space. And I think if you've just not been able to just call the Chinese president on the phone or send him a text and say, hey, do we want to do that $50 million deal today? Or just text your dad, who's a U.S. senator or a president, and say, hey, do we have that conference call with Raytheon this afternoon? I just think you just don't understand. And you see this with former athletes, and you see this with, music stars, why they get into drugs, why they fall, why just the groupies that line up backstage are not enough, and they end up just going further and further and further and further and further into the pit. It's because the average person is living a life of, how do I pay my mortgage payment this next month? How do I make sure my grown-up kids don't hate me when they get older? And then if they do, how do we reconcile? I mean, you're just living, you've not had the benefit of that level of idolatry. It doesn't mean you're not an idolater. We're all sinners. But it's not nearly the level of your identity, because you just haven't lived in the world of avarice and privilege that these people have. And to have that taken away, that's their relevance. There's their reason for being. And I just think he's nothing else other than angry.
He doesn't need the money.
Correct.
It's what you're talking about.
And we'll come back. More Buy, Sell, or Hold is next. Stay tuned. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Daniel Horowitz will join us to take us inside politics. I'm Steve Deace. He's Aaron McIntyre. He is Todd Erzin. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Take advantage of that by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to please subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you love the podcast version, thank you. You guys are the largest segment of our audience. So please, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review, whichever podcast platform is the one you prefer. We've gotten over tens of thousands of those, so thank you. Let's keep those going. Then you can also hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes, you hit follow, and that way you'll know for sure that every time we drop one of these new episodes, it will for sure be right there in your podcast feed. You also want to be for sure and make sure you're going to get a good night's sleep tonight. Our friends over at Beam Dream Powder can help you do that, all right? Because they also share your values, hard work, rugged individualism, right? Meritocracy. But to get that done and to thrive in that kind of an environment, you got to make sure you've got the best night of sleep so you're energized and ready to go take on the day, Dr. Laura. All right, so if that is you, all right, Beam's Dream Powder is fantastic. I've used it several times myself. It's science-backed ingredients like magnesium, melatonin, and more to help improve your sleep so you wake up refreshed the very next day. And I know and how's it work? Well, it's like a hot cocoa. Well, several different flavors. I do the chocolate peanut butter, and I know now what you're thinking. Well, hey man, I intermittent fast. Well, so do I. right? That's a big part of my daily regimen, and it's not interrupted whatsoever by Beam. All right, so here's the deal. Beam makes sure they don't load that thing up with carbs and sugars, okay? But they are going to load you up with a good night's sleep, and they're going to give it to you for a discount right now. In fact, get up to 40% off for a limited time if you go to shopbeam, BEAM, shopbeam.com/Steve and use the code Steve at checkout. Code Steve at checkout at shopbeam.com/Steve. Code Steve at checkout at shopbeam.com/Steve. Get up to 40% off. But most of all, get a better night's sleep so you can have a better next morning and next day. Shopbeam.com, promo code Steve for the big discount. And we get back to buy, sell, or hold. We'll go through as many of these as we can. What remains, we will tackle in the overtime today. Remember, if you just tuned in, we actually started the segment on time this week. We haven't done that a lot recently with all the stuff that's been going on, but we did today. All right, so you're joining us in the middle of it. We'll get through all these. What's left will be in the overtime, and the deal this week is if you hold, given Todd's situation, right? JFK once said that Marilyn Monroe is good for his back. If you hold this week, you're going to have to let Lindsey Graham be good for your back. Todd, your thoughts?
I will endure.
You will endure
pain endlessly.
Indeed. Rather than that indignity?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. All right, Aaron, fire away.
All right, we're going to go to Average Apologetics, who says just because the WASPs and the spirit of the age are somehow inexplicably linked, Steve will be back doing the show from his basement by mid-August.
Sell.
No, we actually had a dragonfly in here, which kill. I was taught by Chance and Sean, they kill wasps.
Okay. I'm going to sell. I mean, Aaron, you've been in here for the last few days. It's been very, very warm here, swampy here in our state with rain and heat. Okay. Seen anything at all except for that dragonfly?
No. Flies, house flies, but it's because the garage door was open.
I mean, this thing is, first of all, different management. Secondly, the blaze is actually on this lease. So, we were subleasing it and from a different company before. So a different level of chain of command. And we're actually also going to do our own HVAC checkup because that's where they kept coming through in the old building. All right. So I'm going to sell. Doesn't mean that we're not going to get other manifestations of the spirit of the age around here. All right. Of that, given that, we're on the front lines of a spiritual battle, of that I am confident. Okay. But I really don't think wasps are going to be an issue. I mean, maybe one gets inadvertently in when the door's opened or something on a summer day, but I really don't think so. I'm going to sell.
Me too.
Over at the old place, hanging from multiple trees, were just old wasps' nests. It must have been just a really popular place for those wasps. Grant Isaski says, as a general rule, people should get married younger, have kids earlier, and have more children than they think they can handle or want initially. When people speak of regrets later in life, it seems to stem from doing the inverse of this.
Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree. And I've said this many times, both on speaking engagements and on the show. Let me say it again to the men. There's never enough money and you're never ready. There's never enough money and you're never ready. Right? So if that's your issue, I can help you now. All right? Be at ease. You're right. You don't have enough money, and you're right. You're not ready. You're not. Now, of course, let's have some common sense. Okay. Hey, we went on one date, and I'm not sure she's a sociopath, and I don't have a job. I think in that case, we'd agree. There's not enough money. And you're not ready. Okay, right? I think we could agree then that's the case.
Yes.
Okay. But we've been married for 3 years. We just don't think we're there. No. There's never enough money and you're not ready. And I can just promise you when you get to the age that Todd and I are at, exactly what Grant said will be true. You will wish that you had done it sooner, and you'll wish that you could have even done it more if you could. All right? You're not going to see, on nobody's gravestone does it say, had too many kids. Doesn't say that. No one put that on their gravestone. Weird. So I think, Grant, that's a homily, brother.
Yeah.
And all God's people said amen. Yes.
You're absolutely right. I just don't think money or readiness is the fundamental thing in the way of most men. It's comfort.
It is.
They have a routine. They like what they're doing. They know this is going to impinge upon it. And modern man has his addictions and his needs, and they aren't very oriented to family.
Agreed.
Next, we go to Michelle. If the grand conspiracy case results in anyone going to prison, Tulsi Gabbard will be JD's running mate in 2028.
That's interesting. What do you think, Todd? I hadn't thought about the political angle to this. What do you think?
Oh.
Why not Pam Bondi? I'll show myself out. I'll show myself out.
I understand what you're saying. I'm going to sell. I think it's possible, and I think it's likely that's a woman. But I do think Sarah Huckabee Sanders has an inside track on that front for all kinds of reasons. And listen, Tulsi's incredible, and she shows a lot of courage and self reflection in terms of the decisions she's made. But she's not. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has way more in common with the base overall than Tulsi Gabbard does. And so I think she'll be able to, Secretary of State, she'll be able to call her shot in a lot of different ways, but I just don't think it's going to be VP.
It's an interesting proposition. I think I would probably still have the same analysis that Todd does. But I also think that you have to consider what might the environment be. What voter bloc are they the most concerned about? Most of the time, when a vice president is picked, it is to expand the nominee's base or answer an objection against the nominee. So a very young Barack Obama picking a seasoned political Paul in Joe Biden. A very young George W. Bush picking a seasoned political Paul in Dick Cheney. Right? Ronald Reagan, defeating the Republican establishment, but then facing a primary challenge from a liberal Republican, an independent candidacy from a liberal Republican that could siphon off votes in the general versus Jimmy Carter. So let me make sure I have got the most united party and put the Bushes who called my tax cuts voodoo economics. That's actually where that term started. It didn't start with Democrats. It started with George H.W. Bush in the primary. Let me make him my running mate. All right. In Bill Clinton's case, he chose Al Gore because he was trying to make the case we were turning the page on the old Democratic Party. We were Southern Democrat, more moderates. There was a time that Al Gore was actually pro-life. All right. So most of the time it is with that in mind. Donald Trump, understanding that he needs massive turnouts of evangelicals and concerned about that, puts Mike Pence on his ticket. Okay. So the one exception to that in modern times was J.D. Vance. And Vance was chosen specifically with the idea of carrying a brand and a faction and an empire, basically, giving an empire an heir. That's typically not how this works. And maybe it should have worked that way more often. When we did our Evergreen with Newt earlier this year, and I asked him, over the course of your 5 decades now, what do you think is the biggest misstep the right's ever had? And what did he say? Reagan picking Bush instead of Jack Kemp. For the very reasons, and he tied it directly back to Trump picking JD, saying Jack Kemp would have given Ronald Reagan what JD gives Donald Trump, a logical heir to carry on as his scion, because he's part of the same revolution and the same anti-establishment wing of the party that Reagan was a part of. And instead, Reagan put an establishment figure on his ticket, believing he had to accentuate or had to actually delineate a negative in his candidacy. So I think who is it? Let's say, for example, because I will tell you there is evidence both in polling and anecdotally if you follow the Bro Dude set that played a huge role in getting Trump elected. The Schultzes, the Vaughns, the Rogans, they're not very happy right now, actually. Particularly Schultz, Rogan, that group. They're not very happy. And there's some polling that indicates the young male audience that they are reaching is expressing some displeasure with President Trump. So maybe there's another constituency that Tulsi Gabbard could help them uniquely reach that they need a point or two with to win in 28. So I'll buy, just because I think it's fascinating that it might, at the very least, put her on the radar. Long-winded answer. Sorry.
Next, we will go to
But this is the Steve Deace Show, and you're all used to those.
Next, we go to Gen X kids. If true accountability is to be had during the Trump administration, focus from all departments and areas will need to be trained on one element, one single crime, and chase it to the end. Choose the Russia hoax, the Autopen, the J6 bomber, Fauci, COVID, etc. It matters not which one, but it can only be one. One crack needs to be created, and much of the rest will fall apart. Chasing 20 different crimes with limited resources will result in nothing but the clock running out. I don't usually take long-winded ones like this, but I thought this was an interesting submission.
I think this is really smart, actually. So I'll buy. So then that would obviously lead to a follow-up question. Is the true origins of the Russia collusion hoax the thread that you pull on that does what he's talking about? Because if you're only going to choose one, then you want to choose the one that is going to eventually lead to the unraveling and the destabilizing of all the others, right? Okay. But I think overall that your assessment is correct. You're better off chasing one to the end and go all the way with it than trying to chase 20 of them. I agree.
I'm going to stay consistent to where I was going all the way back to 2016 and sell. I think there's merit there, but I strongly believe in flooding the zone and taking the field. Now, to do that, you have to trust, and to Steve's point starting off the show, how for the most part, with the exception of Pam Bondi, button-up messaging, button-up leadership, and obviously Bondi's a 400-pound gorilla in the room because we're talking about prosecuting crime. She's kind of important in this scenario. But if you have competent people, and it's not just about messaging for messaging's sake, but you do plan on going all the way, I think it behooves you to have as many guns on the Death Star as possible. Because you're not going to get all of them, but if you get a couple of big fish, that's a lot. Now, I'm not as confident anymore as one of the main reasons I said this in the past, because you had the apparatus of the media and the left, and if you picked one thing and one thing only, think W. Bush and Social Security in his beginning of his second term, and obviously...
Yeah, just so people don't remember, if you don't remember what Todd's talking about, George W. Bush's second term, he vowed that a permanent reforming of Social Security with the intent of making it solvent for the final generation, but allowing younger generations to have alternatives to it so it wouldn't keep going bankrupt all the time. That was going to be the main goal of his second term, okay? And after the second inauguration, he did go out and attempt to do that. It lasted about a week.
I remember that.
Okay. It didn't last very long. It got absolutely just nuked by Republicans and Democrats alike.
Yeah.
And that's really the last bold stroke that George W. Bush tried the rest of his presidency. I mean, the rest of his presidency was basically just, clinging, for dear life at that point.
Obviously, Trump 2.0 is much more focused. The left is much more disheveled. The media is much more discredited. So that's why I think there's merit to your cause. But I'm still going to if you have competent people, let them cook on multiple fronts.
Okay. I thought you got good explanations on both sides of the argument there. So that's also the making of a good submission. Well done.
That jogs my memory. Buy, sell, or hold, George W. Bush's Social Security reform was the last real opportunity to have a long-term reform of that entitlement.
I'll buy. We're way more in debt now.
I saw the other day, I can't remember which age group it was, but basically if it was, I think, 30 years and up in 2005 when that proposal came out, if they started putting their money instead of Social Security into this it was, I think it was going to be tracking like the S&P 500. It would have been completely solvent for those 30 years old and up at the time.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now that we're at an existential point now that either future generations are going to have to abandon these programs, or you're just going to have socialism. I think the amount of debt that we are accruing now, with no real appetite among the I think when people hear me say voters don't care about debt, that they, particularly, within our own audience, take that to mean that I don't care, or I'm like, great, I just live in a political reality, I mean, when I don't predict my favorite team to win every game, and when I predict my favorite teams to lose a game, it doesn't mean I'm like rooting for them to lose. I just think they might lose the game.
It's the Caitlin Clark thing. She could be all of this. She could be a bigger brand than the WNBA itself. She could be a transformative force, but she has shown zero appetite for any of those things. So, okay, I guess, I can't care more than you do.
That's exactly where, that's a great point. So I'm very aware of the consequences of all of this. And one of the consequences will be that we're going to have to abandon those programs in either Aaron's generation or the one right after that, or we're just going to have socialism in Aaron's generation or the one right after that, because we're at a point of no return. We're just a little bit of leaven won't ruin the whole batch, But the reason why I just don't spend a lot of time on the show discussing debt is just because it's not a matter of concern for many people. It's not the touchstone for where I would be permitted to have the wider arguments and discussions via a biblical worldview that I set my show out to always want to have. And that's why we focus on other issues, because people just don't care. I'm not saying they shouldn't care. I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but man, it is what it is.
Next, we go to Ari. Superhero movies are for Gen Xers trying to relive their childhood glory years.
I could see that both ways. We've had superhero movies, before and after. They uniquely became popular during our generation. They uniquely became, now that I'm verbal processing this, I might actually just go ahead and agree and not say I see it both ways, because the timing is unique to our generation. The first time, one of the biggest summer movies of our childhood was the first Batman with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. That's kind of the first time we saw a comic book actually come to life. We would have been very little kids, when we saw the Christopher Reeve Superman movie. Now we're the ones that have been taking our kids to the Marvel movies, for the last 15 plus years. So there might be something to that it might be a uniquely Gen X phenomenon. We could argue then the reasons, but you're at least arguing that it may be a unique Gen X phenomenon. I think that's possible. I'll buy. I think it's possible that Aaron's generation and Gen Zers are just not going to be as enamored with them as we were. But I if that happens, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be for the reasons Todd is hoping. I think it's because they have just found more immersive environments to steep themselves in, aside from reality, than just a 2D experience watching any movie, let alone a superhero movie.
It'd be a better case scenario if it was just a single generational problem. I don't think it is. I do think it speaks to longing, but misplaced longing, and I wish I was wrong about that, but I saw great superhero movies be made for the better part of 2 decades leading up to COVID and transgenderism, and none of it was applied to real life. I think this is people, I think this is faith without works is dead. I just think it's a place where people, like Steve rightly pointed out with COVID, one of the things about COVID is the actual psychological drug of you felt like you were on the team, you belonged. And there's a lot of boys who can shave who are like that about not only superheroes, but a lot of other things. They are all in emotionally, and there's nothing else that compares it to in their life. And you don't need to take my word for it. Look at what's going on. I mean, honestly, people will die in the streets over which Superman you like the best.
Next up, we go to Micah. A federal judge will approve a class action lawsuit against Jesus on behalf of global unbelievers for unlawful discrimination after they are all left behind in the rapture.
Bye.
I'm surprised Todd's answer was, I'm Catholic on the invoking of the rapture. All right. That being said, I think it's appropriately snotty, so I will buy as well. I like the level of snottiness.
There's much more
associated with it.
There's much more good faith to people who believe in the rapture than people who believe in the power of federal judges. So,
well, now that's a take that I respect. That's a take. That's a good take right there. Amen to that, brother.
Follow Truth says if the Fed would lower interest rates, I think we would see the housing market explode. In our neighborhood, 3 houses sold last month, 2 near $1 million, 1 over $1 million. We paid nothing near this. Surprised to see all these sell at that price so quickly. Buy, sell, or hold. Fed cuts rates. Housing market explodes.
I buy. I think this is what Trump is very upset about, and I think it goes beyond that. I think you're talking about you're talking about refis and everything else, right? What Trump is looking for is liquidity, right? This is one of the reasons why we're having these tariffs come in, more money coming in, okay? He is and this actually ties back to what I just said about debt, okay? When you're in the predicament, whether you're upside down in your checking account or you're trillions of dollars in debt that we are, there are only 2 options, right? The same thing is true of your bank account as there is of the federal budget. There's only 2 options, okay? And that is you either cut spending or increase the amount of revenue. Those are your only 2 options, okay? Well, I think Trump is a boomer that comes out of a big government era to begin with, okay? So I don't think he is, from a worldview standpoint, I don't think that he is as hostile to resistant to debt as a construct as many of us natively on the right probably are. Number one, okay? Then number 2, so I think that's probably his worldview default to begin with. And then number 2, remember he's been a global tycoon. He's not paying cash out of pocket for all these hotels and golf courses he's built. These things are all getting financed, investors, okay? So he's used to a certain amount of red as just part of his baseline financial, enterprises. Okay, so I just think from a worldview standpoint, he's just not, from the Milton Friedman school that we all natively on the right grew up, watching the clips on the Donahue show. We're reading his books. Okay. Number 2, he's also president and likes to get votes. And no one, I hate to agree with Mitch McConnell about anything, but when he once said no one's ever lost an election for spending too much money, he's actually right, unfortunately. Okay. So you throw in Trump's worldview bias, where he's not as sensitive to debt as the rest of us are on the right. And then number 2, throw in the fact he's got to get the votes of people, and the people don't seem to be voting a lot for taking less from government. Have they? Has that been a reoccurring thing we've been voting for that I've just missed on that? No? Yeah, not a lot of people volunteering to take less from government. Okay, so that means then if we're not going to cut spending, what has to happen? Revenue has to go up, right? So he's looking for liquidity. He's looking for investment, all right? He's looking for incoming revenue. And a lot of Americans, upper middle class Americans, are sitting on billions of dollars of liquidity called their homes that they can't sell or they can't refi because of where interest rates are. So that is what Trump is absolutely so concerned about. Where this matters, and your post ties into that. So I buy and agree.
And we already established yesterday. The left's political bench is so bad that like Hunter Biden is holding court right now, which brings me to the point I made earlier on the show. Who is more important?
Is he the Michael Avenatti of this cycle?
So who's Jerome Powell?
Except he went to prison first.
Yeah, I thought he was in prison.
He went to prison. Yeah, Avenatti got elevated to a candidate, then went to prison. Hunter Biden's already faced prison, and then he'll become a candidate. Just the opposite order. Anyway, finish your point, Todd. I'm sorry.
So this is why I don't think Jerome Powell staying there and holding the line and giving Democrats a chance to catch their breath. I mean, ultimately, listen, I don't know enough about Jerome Powell, but like if this guy just decides... And we've talked about this position before. What is it's known as the most powerful non-elected position in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look how long how long was Greenspan?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Much of our childhood.
Yeah. And he was always like some kind of Svengali shaman over there. Like, I just don't.
Mr. Andrea Mitchell, they were married for many years. Maybe they ended up staying married. I don't know.
This is why, like, I think he's got to stay. I mean, I don't want him to stay, but I think there's forces there that will reward him in terms of power, riches, whatever, to stay and hold the line because you are exactly right, Steve. And so is our questioner. If you unleash these gates and everybody gets to be groovy, like just like Trump wants, Pax Romana.
So in other words, what you're saying is Jerome Powell's a traitor.
Well,
it's not the Federal Reserve. It's the Democrat. It's the Democrat get out the vote reserve. That's essentially what you're saying.
Oh, I am.
Okay, so so he's a traitor then.
Just to your point, that I don't know enough about the man and his machinations. He's more like filling a placeholder. Maybe you know more about Jerome Powell.
You know what? Here's what I think we can definitively know. The guy oversees a fiat currency printing press.
Correct.
So as
power.
So as just a state of being, he doesn't care about debt. Fundamentally. See what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Now, there might be an amount of debt he cares about that we could, a critical mass, if we give him some benefit of the doubt. There might be an egregious amount that he does suddenly care about, okay? But if you're overseeing a fiat currency printing press, and that is your job, okay? Money that is not tied, money for nothing, like Dire Straits once saying, all right, tethered to nothing, valued at nothing other than what we claim by fiat it is. If that is where you work, then just as a state of being, you have really no hyper concern about debt.
And then if you like a lot of these.
So therefore, the only reasons he would be doing these would be political reasons. And so what you just described is a guy who's willing to essentially hold the economy back for his own political machinations. He's a traitor then.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people just don't like Trump just because they don't like
so treason
that, and they took that. I mean,
so we're back to the opening segment. Start making examples out of people then.
I'm basically saying he's basically like a federal judge. He could.
Yeah. That's what you're saying. So treason it is. Make an example out of somebody then. Otherwise, we're just going to have treason upon treason.
Agreed.
With all these captured institutions like the Federal Reserve, right?
All right, I think that's going to do it until overtime.
All right, we'll get to the rest of your submissions in overtime. Let's find out what Daniel Horowitz thinks about several different things when he joins us in his weekly slot here. Coming up in just a matter of moments. Stay tuned. Hey folks, our friends at Preborn want to say thank you for all of your great generosity to them and just how much of an impact that our partnership between Preborn and The Blaze has had. For example, last year, Preborn saved about 70,000 babies, saved them from their moms, basically, and then maybe went a long way to saving their moms' souls at the same time. And there's just no way that happens without the generosity of our audience here at The Blaze. So let's do even more because more is needed. Unfortunately, hey, it's great. Celebrate every single Planned Parenthood clinic that closes. I saw one in Tyler, Texas closed. I think it was yesterday. So celebrate all victories, okay? But also recognize too, though, that there's a market reality here where now basically every mailbox in America is a potential abortion mill. So we're actually seeing a decrease in Planned Parenthood clinics, an increase in abortions in America. So there's ample opportunity. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few unless you guys show up. So make a tax-deductible donation today, all right, to our friends over at Preborn by going to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve. Or you can dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. Or just keep it even simpler than that. Preborn.com/Steve. And thanks again on behalf of Preborn and the Cause of Life for your generosity. Let's bring in our good friend, the prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, brother. How you be?
We have been doing all right, Steve, just keeping abreast to all the grift.
Speaking of that.
Busy job.
It is. The grift is on. It's on your screen. Indeed, Glenn Fry. All right, so let's get to that because we were having a discussion at the top of the show today. And I want you to look at this purely politically, not necessarily on the merits, okay? It's very clear. Let me lay out the argument and then I'm going to hand it over to you. We believe on our show, it is very clear these leaks, well, they're not even leaks. They're just absolute bomb drops from Tulsi Gabbard were specifically timed because of the amount of negative energy surrounding the White House with the Epstein, the failure to fulfill the campaign vows on Epstein. And that
like you and I talked about last week.
There is a significant part of the MAGA base. At times it's frustrated me. It's really frustrated you because we're ideologues. But there is a significant portion of the MAGA base that really thinks that the corruption in the swamp has to be exposed before we can even get to the policy debates guys like you and I want. It's a red line for them. And Epstein is one of the top names on their list. And they were not getting what they wanted. And the negative energy was causing the White House to even get off message and not even hold press conferences with foreign leaders without being asked about it. So we don't believe it's any coincidence that this is when they went to who really orchestrated the Russia collusion stuff with Tulsi. Okay. By the way, I also have a very hard time believing that somehow the Democrats left complete, total documentation linking Obama to this intact, but then they doctored and purged the Epstein files. That's weird to me, but I'll let that one slide. Okay. So I then said, because that's the case, this is not, I don't think it's a diversion as much as it's a redirection of that energy, trying to give that energy another high value target that doesn't come with the collateral damage that maybe going into the Epstein, waters does. Then you can't just do this for subcommittee talking points. You can't do this so Griff Turd 45 can earn his $10K for engagement farming this month. All right. You can't have the president out there tweeting treason. You can't have Tulsi Gabbard out there referring things to criminal for prosecution to Pam Bondi. That these just cannot just be, Omarosas and Scaramucci hirings like the first term. Like people are taking this way too seriously now and desperately want to see accountability for the scams of the last 5 years. And that they have to know this. All right, which is why I do think we're going to see some kind of indictment. We're going to see some kind of arrest. May not be Obama, maybe it's John Brennan, somebody within that's kind of a symbol of all this. All right. Todd's not so sure that that's the case. And I'm like, if they don't do this, if this is where they redirected people's energy to and then don't deliver, yikes. Okay. So politically, I'm not asking you to give your opinion on what they would do because it's unknown. As much as what happens, do you think, politically, if this just ends up being nothing more than what these have typically been for the last few years? Online engagement farming cause celebs, but no real substance at all. What's the political fallout of this?
I don't know, Steve, I'm kind of confused about the question because this is what we did the last 2 weeks about Epstein being the red line, and it was for sure the red line. And I told you, we live in a news cycle where it's so quick, they're going to go on to something else. And they did. And Congress literally broke its session and didn't do H.R. 2 just to get away from Epstein. And, Mike Johnson's not in the Epstein files. Okay. So he didn't do it for himself. That's not why he did it. And the base, whatever you want to call that and whatever it's composed of, seems to be fine with it. So I don't see how this is really any different. And I'll just add to that luggage, it's dropping now. I mean, I've known about this for a while. It's been percolating in the news, but Microsoft was given responsibility to a lot of military secrets that had to do with nuclear databases, and Chinese engineers were given access to it. This is another scandal. The bottom line is, you look at that, you look at Las Vegas and all these things we wanted to find out about. You look at the Butler attempted assassination. You look at the FBI whistleblowers. You look at COVID. Nobody has been arrested. So I think this is just another story, and we're going to have another one and another one. I think an interesting thing that has happened in the news is that one thing that has changed, I've noticed, and I know this is a little bit of a different point, but I think it answers your question. I would say since Elon took over Twitter, I don't think it's causation, but roughly the last maybe 2 years, we've moved on from this emotional indulgence. Remember where we would milk a story to the gates of hell and it would take over your life for weeks on end. Then it became the opposite, where we just live in this rapid fire of crazy things happening. And not just things that we want to dwell on, but even things the left would, like some of these shootings, you know what I mean, where they would milk it for gun control. We've had a lot of them the last couple of years, and they just fell flat. They didn't do anything with them. It just one to another. I don't have a reason for it, but maybe it's just the human psyche has been so exhausted. I don't think any one story seems to gain traction to become like a George Floyd level policy changer, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I don't think we could possibly have one of those on the right. I don't think it's even possible. We just would never be able to generate the critical mass institutionally that their side can, because they've captured every institution. So, I mean, literally, Jesus has to return, or a mushroom cloud. Either there needs to be an orb with single-eyed alien saying, "Take me to your leader," coming down Jacob's ladder from the heavens. Jesus returns, or a mushroom cloud. Those are the only. I don't think we could possibly generate that, no matter what the story is. But what I'm really talking about is within our own ecosystem. Do you think we can generate those kinds of stories or not?
No, Steve. This is a working.
So you think
mine.
Could they just betray us on the accountability front systemically, no matter what? Never deliver. I'm asking. I don't know. You think that
Steve, hear
no
me
matter
out
what?
for a minute, and I'm just being very cold here. I mean, I'm trying to be very dispassionate about it. What I am seeing is that, and it's true, the cycle of failure theater is, the more you fail to redress a problem, right? Whether it's immigration, whether it's inflation, the cost of living crisis, whether it's the cultural problems, the anarcho-tyranny, and the more it continues, the more there is a greater clamor to say we have to beat the Democrats and unite. They benefit from the fruit of their crime. This has been my frustration, right? Because it is true. The more they fail to confront it, the more that allows the forces of the left and the uniparty to move on and claim more ground, the more the stakes seem even higher. And, it's already later in the year. We're going to have the Virginia election soon, and we're going to skip the primaries. That's been canceled. So we're going to get very close to the time where, look, could you imagine if the Democrats took over the House? And this is why you're seeing all the news about Republicans trying to do unprecedented mid-decade redistricting in several states to squeeze out more seats. So I think there's always going to be fodder of, this sort of political fentanyl to keep people pumping. So at a monetary level, there's always going to be what to monetize. And at an intellectual level, there's always a way you can come in front of me and say, look at this success. The administration is always going to be doing some good things. They've been cutting some, federal agencies, which is good. There's always going to be, but the Democrats, there's always going to be other stories. I don't know how to break the cycle. I'm struggling with this myself.
How much of this is just because we're in a cold civil war?
It's because we're in a cold civil war,
and people just think existentially
only one side has certain weapons.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come to a natural detente that two equal sides would push. We're talking about milking news stories. So with like a Floyd thing, the other side has in law, policy, and culture a ready to go grab and go movement to utilize a cultural flashpoint to achieve certain outcomes. We clearly don't have that. So you don't achieve resolution. And that's my point. So the more now, I'm not saying people are going to take it sitting down. I'm saying those closest to the political orbit will move you on to the next thing, like they seamlessly did with Epstein when we were sure they couldn't do that. And the people a little bit more distant from it on the right are going to continuously get more black-pilled. Mm-hmm. But again, not leading to like, oh, we're going to have a bunch of primaries or this or that or change. It's just going to be in a very seething, unhealthy way.
Now let's talk about the merits of things. I'm a big believer that if there isn't some example made out of somebody, that whenever you have a duopolistic system, whether it's the U.S., the Soviet Union, okay, whether it's Republicans and Democrats, and yes, there's a uniparty, aspect to it as well. But the majority of the people that call themselves one of those two do so for very serious reasons. They're not living in D.C. partaking of the uniparty. They believe that either one of these two vehicles is the existential, manifestation of their value system. Okay. Whenever you have a duopolistic system, you have two options: tyranny or mutually assured destruction. All right. And without mutually assured destruction, you're always going to have tyranny because there's going to be one side that's invariably going to say, there's no limits on how far I can push back on you, press against you. I don't want you. I mean, it's existential if you are in my place and I can't let that happen. So I'll do whatever I want to you. Right. And I'm a big believer that whatever, if we're not in a zero-sum game politically now, we're in the final stage before things go zero-sum. And if we don't create a Reagan-level mutual assured destruction, the crazies in the Kremlin are going to fire missiles. They're going to think they could win a nuclear war. And the proto versions of shooting at our candidates, not just Trump, how about at a suburban DC ball field, okay? Putting our people in prison or threatening them with that. We're gonna make you take a poison that we know doesn't work, that our own CDC director admitted on national TV a month before the edict doesn't work. We're going to make you take it to work for a Fortune 500 company. We're going to deploy the largest single censorship industrial complex in American history. We're going to permit the largest invasion of the homeland in the history of the United States of America. These kinds of things, if they go unpunished, they're not going to stop themselves over there. It'll just become more renegade, more ruthless. And then eventually we'll be out of options to contain this aggressively but peaceably, and things will go zero-sum real quick. And if we have got to restore mutually assured destruction. I think that's one of the primary goals of this Trump presidency, is to restore that. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'll give you my thoughts and then what I think politically is or isn't happening. I obviously agree with you on that, because with COVID, nobody has been punished for violating the laws against gain of function. They were on the books. People clearly violated them. We're not seeing interest. I know people with January 6th. I have friends in the Justice Department that have a lot of evidence of individuals who violated a lot of laws to do what they did in January 6th, and there doesn't seem to be an interest. Meaning they did want to pardon the defendants, but they didn't want to go on offense, to your point. And I want to really focus on January 6th, because I think if
2 minutes, you get the last 2 minutes of the show. Go ahead, go.
Yeah. If you just sort of just let it go, you understand what's happening on the backside of this presidency when Democrats take over. That's going to be the next level. So you're not going to have your mutual assured destruction. So that's why I think they were happy just to pardon people, which is nice, but you got to go on offense. So I absolutely agree with that. As far as what's going to happen, I think there's a big generational divide. What you're saying, that it's going to well up at some point and there's going to be an unhealthy way of dealing with it, it's got to be. I don't know how long it's going to take, because it's a younger generation. Every time I turn on Fox News, which is, where the majority of, or the core of Republican voters still are, but maybe not for much longer, it's very much white pill. I mean, I turned it on for 3 seconds because I was in a hotel room, and both the content and the ads were over AI data centers and how amazing AI is, and there's no inflation, and Hunter Biden's profanity-laced interview. So that's definitely not going to spawn a civil war. I mean, that's designed to white pill people. And the people that I think would do what you're talking about and are going to get frustrated, I agree. It's gonna well up for a while. I don't know when that ticking time bomb is going to go off, but it's pretty scary.
Good to see you, my friend. Thanks as always. Take care.
Take care.
You bet. Gentlemen, your thoughts in the final minute before we get out of here of what Daniel had to say.
Well, obviously, Daniel's feeling what I'm smoking over here. You should be right, Steve. You are doing a simple moral calculus in terms of either you implement justice or you will get steamrolled in the end, and maybe not just you, but all those you love coming down the pike generationally. We just don't think that way. We're way too individualistic and selfish these days, and that's what I'm worried about.
Do you think we should just adopt an official show position that we're mentally, spiritually moving to Missouri and just...
You have to show me?
You got to show me. With any of these apparent Rubicons, red lines with accountability, like actual accountability, that we just don't expect to see it until we see it.
I don't have a problem with that. But to be fair, Tulsi Gabbard dropping these things on the desk of the Attorney General is a step. We said this yesterday. We said this yesterday.
And
it is a definitive step of things we have not seen before.
what did I ask you after the first segment of the show? When was the last time you heard or saw an official statement from Barack Obama responding to a riff from Trump or anything like that?
Right.
I can't think off the top of my head.
I agree. You don't typically see that. I agree. So we shall see. We're going to stick around, finish, buy, sell, or hold for subscribers, blazetv.com/Deace. For the rest of you, back at it again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.